This 4th of July, I came bearing my grandmother's apple pie and a small gift for my granddaughter. But as I stepped onto my son's porch, the door swung open and those words fell like a blade. "You're not family anymore. Leave." Just a few words, and I understood they'd quietly erased me from their lives long ago. But I also knew what they were scheming to take was the one thing I'd never let them have. My name is Margaret Holbrook, though most folks around here call me Maggie. At 68, I thought I'd seen enough of life to avoid any more surprises. But there I was, sitting in my kitchen at 7:30 in the morning, scrolling through Facebook with trembling hands, staring at photos that shouldn't have hurt as much as they did. The images glowed on my phone screen. My son Daniel's backyard decorated with red, white, and blue streamers, tables laden with food, children running through sprinklers, and there, right in the center of it all, was Lauren Daniel's new wife, wearing the apron I'd embroidered for him 15 years ago, the one with "Kiss the Cook" stitched in navy thread. She was flipping burgers on the grill Sam and I had given Daniel for his 30th birthday. I zoomed in on another photo. My granddaughter Emma, now 12, was helping Lauren frost a cake, the same child who used to beg me to teach her my secret recipe for strawberry shortcake every summer. In the background, I could see the banner, "Annual Holbrook 4th of July Bash." Annual, as if this tradition hadn't started in my backyard 40 years ago. The house felt colder than it should for July. I set down my phone and wrapped my cardigan tighter, though the chill came from somewhere deeper than the air conditioning. Through my kitchen window, I could see my neighbor's family loading up their minivan with coolers and beach chairs. Everyone had somewhere to go today. Everyone except me. I hadn't received an invitation, not a call, not a text, not even a courtesy. "Hey, Mom, we're having people over." The silence was deliberate, surgical in its precision. They'd simply written me out of the story, like an editor striking unnecessary words from a manuscript. My fingers found their way to the photo album on the kitchen table, the one I'd been meaning to organize for months. Page after page of 4th of July's past. Emma as a toddler, her face painted like a flag, Daniel teaching her to light sparklers in our driveway, Sam manning the grill in his ridiculous star-spangled chef's hat, me, younger and laughing, serving my apple pie to tables full of family and friends. That was before Sam's heart attack 3 years ago, before I became a widow who apparently took up too much space, before Lauren arrived with her perfect teeth and her ideas about boundaries and moving forward as a nuclear family. I picked up my phone again, unable to stop myself from scrolling through more photos, Lauren's friends commenting, "Beautiful family, you're such a wonderful hostess." Each compliment felt like a small theft. She was living in my traditions, serving my recipes, using my decorations, all while ensuring I was nowhere in the frame. The kitchen clock ticked toward 8. In past years, I'd already be at Daniel's by now, helping set up chairs, marinating the chicken, making sure the potato salad had enough mustard. Emma would be my shadow, helping by sneaking tastes of everything. But not this year. This year, I was a ghost in my own life, haunting the edges of a celebration I'd created, but could no longer attend. I closed Facebook and stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen. When had I become someone so easily erased? When had my own son decided I was optional? The answer came with Lauren's face, her possessive hand on Daniel's arm in every photo, her careful orchestration of a new family narrative that had no room for inconvenient mothers-in-law. She'd been subtle at first, scheduling events when she knew I had doctor's appointments, forgetting to mention gatherings until after they happened. But this was a declaration of war disguised as a holiday party. I stood up, my decision sudden and fierce. They may have rewritten the guest list, but I still had something to contribute to this 4th of July. In my refrigerator sat the apple pie I'd made yesterday, still believing I'd have somewhere to take it. In my closet was the gift I'd wrapped for Emma, a vintage charm bracelet that had belonged to my mother. They could try to erase me, but I wouldn't make it easy. I was still Emma's grandmother, still Daniel's mother, still the woman who'd spent 40 years making this holiday special for this family. And I'd be damned if I'd spend it alone in this empty kitchen, looking at pictures of a life that used to be mine. The morning light filtered through the kitchen curtains as I poured myself another cup of coffee, but my thoughts had already drifted 40 miles north to Cedar Lake, to Willow Point. Just thinking the name made my chest tighten with a mixture of love and fear I'd been carrying for months. Sam and I had discovered that piece of land in 1985, back when Daniel was just a toddler and the shoreline was still wild and undeveloped. 5 acres of pine and birch trees sloping down to the clearest water in the state. We'd stood there, hand in hand, and Sam had said, "This is it, Maggie. This is where we'll build our forever place." We couldn't afford much back then. Sam was still working construction, and I was picking up night shifts at the hospital, but we bought that land anyway, every weekend for 2 years. We drove up there with Daniel sleeping in his car seat, hammering and sawing and slowly raising the walls of what would become Willow Point. Sam insisted on doing most of the work himself, learning from library books and the occasional advice from old-timers at the hardware store. The cabin wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, a stone fireplace Sam built rock by rock, a kitchen with windows overlooking the water, and a wraparound porch where we spent countless summer evenings. But every board, every nail, every carefully chosen stone held our sweat and dreams. When we finally installed the front door, painted forest green because it was my favorite color, Sam carried me over the threshold like newlyweds, 3-year-old Daniel giggling on his hip. That place had seen everything. Daniel's first fish, caught off our little dock at age 5, birthday parties with cousins splashing in the shallows, the summer Daniel was 16 and sullen, barely speaking to us, until a week at the cabin somehow softened whatever teenage rage he was carrying. Sam teaching Emma to skip stones when she was 7, her delighted squeals echoing across the water when she finally managed 2 hops. After Sam's retirement party 5 years ago, he pulled Daniel aside on the cabin porch. I'd been in the kitchen, but their voices carried through the screen door. "This place will be yours someday." Sam had said, "Your mother and I want you to have it, to bring your kids here like we brought you. Keep it in the family." Daniel had nodded, his eyes bright with something I'd thought was gratitude. "I know. Dad, Emma loves it here as much as I did. We'll take care of it." Neither of them had asked me, but I hadn't minded then. Of course Daniel would inherit Willow Point. He was our only child, Emma, our only grandchild. Where else would it go? But that was before Sam's sudden death left me rattled and grieving, before Daniel started dropping hints that became less subtle with each passing month. "Mom, that place is a lot of upkeep for one person. The property taxes must be killing you. Emma and I could use it more if it was officially ours." The last time we'd all been there together was the summer before Sam died. Lauren had complained about the lack of air conditioning, the dated kitchen, the rustic bathroom. She'd spent most of the weekend on her phone, researching nearby hotels, but Daniel had laughed it off, said she'd learned to love it like we all did. Then, last Christmas, Daniel had presented me with paperwork. "Just thinking ahead, Mom," he'd said, sliding the documents across my dining room table. "If you transfer the deed now, we can avoid inheritance taxes later. It's still yours to use whenever you want, of course." I'd been too deep in grief to really process what he was asking. The papers sat in my desk drawer, unsigned, while Daniel's reminders grew more frequent. "Did you get a chance to look at those documents? The lawyer says it's really straightforward. Lauren found this great article about estate planning." But Willow Point wasn't just estate planning. It was Sam's hands in every beam, my dreams in every window, our love in the very foundation. It was the last place that still smelled like him during thunderstorms, where his coffee mug still sat by the sink, where Emma had measured her height on the door frame every summer. 3 weeks ago, Daniel had called with a new urgency in his voice. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the cabin. There's this investment opportunity, and if I could leverage the property value, I'd cut him off, said I needed more time to think. That was the last time he'd called me about anything. Now, staring at those Facebook photos of the family gathering I wasn't invited to, I understood. This wasn't about boundaries or moving forward or any of Lauren's psychology speak. This was about Willow Point. They were pushing me out because I wouldn't sign over the one thing that still held Sam's presence, the one place where I could still feel whole. But that cabin wasn't just property to leverage. It was 40 years of love hammered into wood and stone. And maybe, just maybe, it was also my ace in the hole. By 10:45, I'd made up my mind. The apple pie sat in its carrier, still warm from my morning rebake. Emma's gift was wrapped in silver paper with a blue bow. I'd changed into my navy sundress, the one Sam always said made my eyes look like the lake, and applied lipstick with a steady hand. If they wanted to erase me, they'd have to do it to my face. The drive to Daniel's house took 12 minutes. I knew because I counted every one, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I practiced what I'd say. I just wanted to drop off Emma's gift. Simple, dignified. No begging for an invitation that should have been mine by right. Their street was lined with cars. The Andersons from 3 houses down, the Patel family from Daniel's office, Lauren's book club friends. Everyone had been invited to the annual Holbrook 4th of July bash except the woman who'd started it. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, gathering courage through the living room window. I could see people laughing, drinks in hand. The sound of music drifted from the backyard, the same playlist Sam had created years ago, apparently still in rotation. The walk to the front door felt both endless and too quick. My finger hesitated over the doorbell. In my own son's house, I had to ring the doorbell like a stranger selling magazines. I pressed it. Footsteps approached, and then the door swung open. Daniel stood there in a polo shirt I'd given him last Christmas, his face cycling through surprise, annoyance, and something that looked almost like panic. "Mom?" He didn't move aside, didn't open the door wider, just stood there, filling the doorframe like a bouncer at a club. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, Daniel?" I kept my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. I brought Emma's gift and a pie for the party. His eyes darted behind him, then back to me. "Mom, we weren't expecting you." "I can see that." I lifted the pie carrier slightly. "Your grandmother's recipe, the one everyone always asks for." "Lauren made desserts." His voice was flat, dismissive. "We have plenty." From somewhere in the house, I heard Emma's voice. "Dad, who's at the door?" Daniel's jaw tightened. He stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door nearly closed behind him. "Look, Mom, this is awkward. Lauren and we're trying to establish our own traditions, our own way of doing things." "Your own traditions?" The words tasted bitter. "Daniel, I started this party when you were in diapers. Your father and I—" "Dad's gone." The words were sharp, final, and things change. "Lauren feels like you're too involved, that you don't respect boundaries." Boundaries? I could feel my composure cracking. "I haven't seen Emma in 2 months. You haven't returned my calls in 3 weeks. What boundaries am I crossing by existing?" He shifted uncomfortably, glancing back at the door. "It's complicated," Lauren thinks. "We think it's better if we have some space, for everyone's sake." Space. I repeated the word like it was foreign. "Is that what you call this? Your daughter is in there. Daniel, my granddaughter, and you're standing here like a guard dog keeping me out." "Don't be dramatic." But he didn't move. "This is exactly why Lauren says—" "What does Lauren say?" My voice rose despite my efforts. "That I'm too much, that I remind you of your father, that I'm inconvenient to your new life." Daniel's face hardened. "You know what? Yeah, something like that. We're trying to move forward and you're stuck in the past. Everything has to be about Dad, about the old days, about how things used to be. It's exhausting." The words hit like physical blows. I stood there, holding my mother's pie and my granddaughter's gift, feeling every one of my 68 years. I see. My voice came out smaller than I intended. So that's it? 40 years of being your mother and you're just done. He crossed his arms. It doesn't have to be forever. Just give us some time. Let us figure things out without you hovering. Hovering? I laughed, but it was hollow. I live 20 minutes away and haven't been invited to a single family event in months. If that's hovering, what do you call abandonment? Mom, please. He looked tired suddenly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just go home. We'll call you when we're ready. When you're ready. I nodded slowly. Understanding flooding through me. This is about the cabin, isn't it? Willow Point. You're freezing me out because I won't sign it over. His silence was answer enough. I held out Emma's gift. At least give her this. Tell her it's from her grandmother who loves her. He took it reluctantly, like it might burn him. And Daniel? I met his eyes one last time. You might want to rethink that investment opportunity you mentioned, the one that needs Willow Point as collateral, because you're right, I'm not family anymore, and I don't do business with strangers. I turned and walked back to my car with as much dignity as I could muster, the pie still in my hands, behind me. I heard the door close with a decisive click. As I drove away, I didn't cry. There would be time for that later, right now. I had planning to do, because if they wanted to play this game, they'd forgotten who taught them the rules. The doorbell rang at 2:15, just as I was throwing away the untouched apple pie. I'd spent the hours since leaving Daniel's house moving between rage and despair, but the sound of Patricia Monroe's voice through the door intercom was like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. Maggie Holbrook, you open this door right now. I saw your car at Daniel's, and then saw you leave 5 minutes later looking like death warmed over. Pat had been my closest friend for 35 years. Ever since we'd worked night shifts together at Mercy General, she'd held my hand through Sam's funeral, brought casseroles when I couldn't bear to cook, and possessed an uncanny ability to know when I needed her most. I opened the door to find her standing there in red, white, and blue sneakers, holding 2 iced coffees and wearing her no-nonsense expression, the one she used to reserve for difficult doctors and non-compliant patients. "Get out of the way," she commanded, pushing past me. "We're going to sit down. You're going to tell me everything, and then we're going to fix whatever mess your son has created." 20 minutes later, she knew it all. The Facebook photos, the confrontation at the door, the months of being slowly edited out of my own family's life. Pat listened with the focused intensity that had made her the best trauma nurse in 3 counties, occasionally muttering words that would have scandalized her prayer group. "That little weasel," she finally said, setting down her coffee with enough force to make the table shake. "And that wife of his. I knew she was trouble when she complained about the potato salad at Sam's funeral reception. Who complains about potato salad at a funeral?" Despite everything, I almost smiled. "Pat, I don't know what to do. They've made it clear I'm not welcome. Maybe I should just let them go." "Like hell?" Pat leaned forward, her brown eyes fierce behind her glasses. "Maggie, there's something you need to know. My daughter Jennifer works at First National Bank, you know, where Daniel does his business banking." I nodded, not sure where this was going. Pat lowered her voice. "Though we were alone. She can't give me specifics, regulations, and all that, but she mentioned seeing Daniel in there last week with a stack of paperwork about Willow Point, property assessments, deed research, that sort of thing. And here's the interesting part. He wasn't alone. There were 2 men with him in expensive suits, the kind that smell like money and trouble." My blood chilled. Investors? That's what Jennifer thought. She heard one of them mention something about leveraging assets and project timeline. Maggie. "I think Daniel's in deeper than just wanting the cabin. I think he's already promised it as collateral for something." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "But he can't. The deed is in my name. Sam made sure of that. He always said the property should be in my name for protection." "Exactly." Pat's expression was grim, which is why he's trying to push you out. Can't have Mom interfering with business when there's money on the line. Oh, God. I sank back into my chair. Pat, what if he's forged something? What if... Stop. Pat held up a hand. Don't spiral. You need facts, not fears. And you need a lawyer. A good one. I don't even know where to start. Pat pulled out her phone. Lucky for you, I do. Remember when my sister's kids tried to put her in a home and sell her house? The lawyer who handled that case was brilliant. Amelia Brooks. She specializes in elder law and family property disputes. She'll eat Daniel and his investors for breakfast. Elder law? I bristled slightly. I'm not elderly. You're a woman over 65 whose family is trying to manipulate her out of property. Trust me, you want someone who knows this game. Pat was already scrolling through her contacts. I'm texting you her number. Call her tomorrow. No, wait, tomorrow's the 5th. Call her Monday. Pat, I don't know if I'm ready for lawyers and... Margaret Ann Holbrook? Pat used my full name like a weapon. That boy just told you to your face that you're not family anymore. He's using your granddaughter as a bargaining chip and treating your husband's legacy like a poker chip. You can sit here feeling sorry for yourself, or you can fight back. What would Sam do? I knew exactly what Sam would do. He'd protect what we'd built. He'd stand up for what was right. He'd never let anyone, not even our son, disrespect the woman he loved. You're right. I straightened my shoulders. You're absolutely right. Of course I am. Pat reached over and squeezed my hand. Now, Jennifer also mentioned something else. She has a friend who works at the county clerk's office. If you want to know exactly what Daniel's been up to with property records, we could do a little digging. Is that legal? Public records are public. Honey, we're just concerned citizens exercising our right to information. Pat's smile was sharp. Besides, if he's got nothing to hide, there's nothing to find, right? For the first time since seeing those Facebook photos this morning, I felt something other than hurt. It was anger, clean and clarifying, burning away the fog of betrayal. When can we go? I asked. Tuesday morning, I'll pick you up at 9. Wear something that says, respectable grandmother who knows her rights. After Pat left, I stood at my kitchen window, looking out at the empty bird feeder Daniel used to fill when he was young. Somewhere across town, my family was celebrating without me, probably toasting to their future plans for my property. Let them celebrate. They'd shown me who they really were today. And Pat was right. It was time to find out exactly what they were planning. Because if Daniel thought he could erase me from the family and then take what Sam and I had built with our own hands, he'd forgotten one crucial thing. He'd learned his stubbornness from me. The law office of Amelia Brooks occupied the second floor of a restored Victorian building downtown. By 9:30 on Monday morning, I was sitting across from a woman who looked like she could stare down a judge and make him apologize. Steel gray hair pulled back in an elegant twist, sharp hazel eyes behind designer frames, and a handshake that meant business. Patricia Monroe speaks highly of you, Amelia said, settling behind her mahogany desk. She mentioned this is a time-sensitive matter involving family property. I'd rehearsed this story in my head all weekend, but telling it to a stranger still felt like peeling off a bandage. My son is trying to force me to sign over our family cabin. I believe he's already made promises to investors about using it as collateral. Amelia's expression didn't change, but she pulled out a legal pad and began taking notes. Tell me everything. Start with the property details. For the next 40 minutes, I laid it all out. Willow Point's history, Sam's death, Daniel's escalating pressure, the 4th of July confrontation, Pat's intelligence about the bank meeting. Amelia interrupted occasionally with precise questions. Whose name is on the deed? Were there any verbal agreements about inheritance? Do you have documentation of the property's acquisition? When I finished, she set down her pen and studied me. Mrs. Holbrook, what your son is attempting is more common than you might think. Adult children who believe they're entitled to parental assets, especially when they're facing financial pressure. The good news is, the law is on your side. The concerning news is what he might have already done. What do you mean? If he's met with investors using Willow Point as proposed collateral, he may have misrepresented his ownership status. That's fraud. But it also means he's desperate, and desperate people make dangerous decisions. She pulled out a different folder. I need you to authorize me to pull some records, property filings, any liens or claims, recent financial documents filed with the county. I signed where she indicated, my hand steady despite the churning in my stomach. Now, Amelia continued, Patricia mentioned you haven't been to the cabin recently. We need to ensure Daniel hasn't taken any liberties with access. Has he ever had keys? Of course. It's been the family cabin. He and Emma would go up sometimes without us, especially in the summer. A horrible thought struck me. You don't think he's done something to the property? I think we need to find out. She made another note. I'm also going to file what's called a lis pendens, a notice of pending legal action. This will freeze any attempted sales or transfers of the property until we resolve this matter. It's a protective measure. Will Daniel know? If he tries to move forward with any property transaction, yes, he'll be notified immediately. Amelia's smile was sharp. Consider it a shot across the bow. She stood and walked to a filing cabinet, pulling out more documents. I also want to discuss elder financial abuse protection. I know you don't think of yourself as elderly, but legally, you qualify for certain protections. If Daniel has been using emotional manipulation or family relationships to pressure you into financial decisions, that's abuse under state law. The word abuse hit me like cold water. He's my son. It's not abuse. He told you that you're not family anymore unless you comply with his financial demands. He's withheld access to your granddaughter. He's created a hostile environment designed to isolate and pressure you. Amelia's voice was gentle but firm. What would you call it? I couldn't answer, the woman continued. By 3 this afternoon, I'll have those property records. I want you to go home. Gather any documentation you have about Willow Point. The original deed, tax records, insurance policies, anything also. Document every interaction with Daniel about the property. Emails, texts, voicemails. Build me a timeline. What about Emma? The question escaped before I could stop it. I don't want this to hurt my relationship with her more than it already has. Amelia's expression softened slightly. Custody and visitation rights for grandparents are complex, but not impossible. First, we protect your assets, then we can explore options for maintaining your relationship with your granddaughter, one battle at a time. I left her office with a folder of papers and a strange mix of relief and dread. This was really happening. I was taking legal action against my own son. By 4:45 that afternoon, my phone rang. Amelia's name appeared on the screen. Maggie, I need you to sit down for this. Her voice was carefully controlled. I've reviewed the property records, and we have a serious situation. My knees went weak. I sank onto my couch. What did he do? 3 weeks ago, your son filed a document with the county claiming to be the authorized agent for Willow Point Properties. He used this to obtain a professional property assessment. The assessment value came back at $1.2 million. 1.2. I couldn't breathe. We bought that land for $30,000. Lakefront property in that area has skyrocketed, but here's the concerning part. He then used that assessment to secure a preliminary agreement with a development group called Shoreline Ventures. They're planning a luxury condo development, and your property is the centerpiece of their proposed site. Condos? My voice cracked. They want to tear down our cabin for condos? The agreement is contingent on Daniel securing clear title within 90 days. He's already received a $50,000 option payment. $50,000. I felt sick. He sold them an option on property he doesn't own? Exactly, which is fraud, but it also explains his desperation. If he can't deliver the property, he'll have to return that money. Money I'm guessing he's already spent or invested elsewhere. The room spun. My son, the boy I'd raised, had sold our family's heart for $50,000 and a development deal. What do we do? I whispered. We've already done it. The lis pendens was filed an hour ago. Shoreline Ventures will be notified by end of business today that the property's ownership is in dispute. Their lawyers will drop this deal like a hot coal. I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Your son is about to learn a very expensive lesson about counting chickens before they hatch. He'll be ruined, I said, surprising myself with how little satisfaction the thought brought me. He ruined himself the moment he forged that agent authorization. But Maggie, Amelia's voice gentled, this is going to get ugly. When that company demands their money back, Daniel's going to be desperate. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Sam, about the cabin he'd built with his own hands, about Daniel standing in his doorway telling me I wasn't family anymore. I'm prepared, I said, and for the first time in months, I meant it. The calls started at 6:22 the next morning. My phone lit up with Daniel's number, buzzing against my nightstand like an angry wasp. I let it go to voicemail. By 7, I had 12 missed calls and a string of text messages that progressed from confused to furious. Mom, what did you do? Call me back now. This is serious. You've ruined everything. Lauren is crying. Emma is asking why Daddy is so upset. You vindictive witch. How could you? I turned off my phone and made breakfast, my hands steady as I scrambled eggs. Let him stew in the mess he'd created. Pat arrived at 9 with reinforcements, coffee and her cousin Robert, who happened to be a retired sheriff's deputy. Just in case Daniel decides to pay you a visit, Pat explained as Robert settled himself on my porch with a newspaper. He's got nothing but time these days. By noon, I couldn't avoid the situation any longer. I turned my phone back on to find 47 missed calls, 23 texts, and 9 voicemails. The last message was from Lauren. Margaret, this is completely unacceptable. You've destroyed our financial future over petty jealousy. Daniel is meeting with lawyers to contest your mental competency. I suggest you reconsider before this gets uglier than it needs to be. Mental competency? Pat snorted when I played it for her. That girl's got some nerve. At 2:30, I decided it was time to visit Willow Point. I needed to see it, to remind myself what I was fighting for. Pat insisted on coming along, and Robert followed in his truck. The drive up Highway 35 was achingly familiar. Every curve, every landmark held memories. The gas station where Emma always begged to stop for ice cream, the scenic overlook where Sam proposed to me 43 years ago, the turnoff to Cedar Lake that still made my heart lift, even now. But when we reached the private road to Willow Point, my heart sank. A new chain blocked the entrance, secured with a heavy padlock. A no trespassing sign hung from the center. That son of a... Pat caught herself. He locked you out of your own property? I got out of the car, staring at the chain. He must have done this recently, maybe even today. Robert examined the lock. This is brand new, hardware store tags still on it. He looked at me. You want me to cut it? It's your property. No. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. Let him hang himself. This is more evidence for Amelia. We drove back to the main road and parked at the public boat launch. From there, we could hike through the state forest land that bordered our property. It took 20 minutes of walking through pine needles and mosquitoes, but finally, Willow Point came into view through the trees. My breath caught. The cabin looked exactly as I'd left it 6 weeks ago, weathered wood silver in the afternoon sun. The American flag Sam had installed still flew from the pole he'd cemented himself, but there were signs of neglect, leaves piled on the porch, one shutter hanging loose, the bird feeders empty. Oh, Maggie, Pat whispered, it's beautiful. Sam built that porch during the summer of '93, I said, my voice thick. Daniel helped. He was 13, all gangly limbs and attitude, but he worked alongside his father every day. Sam was so proud. We couldn't get closer without trespassing on my own property. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I could see enough. The kitchen window where I'd watched countless sunrises, the dock where Sam taught Emma to fish, the fire pit where we'd roasted marshmallows just last summer, back when I still believed I had a family. My phone buzzed. Another text from Daniel. Mom, please, the investors are threatening to sue me. I could lose everything, the house, Emma's college fund, everything. Is that what you want? I showed it to Pat. She shook her head. Don't you dare feel guilty. He made his bed. But as we hiked back to the car, I couldn't shake the image of Emma asking why Daddy was upset. She was innocent in all this, a pawn in her parents' game. How much damage was I willing to do to teach Daniel a lesson? That evening, I was reheating leftover soup when a car pulled into my driveway. Not Daniel's SUV, but a black Mercedes I didn't recognize. 2 men in expensive suits got out, and I knew without asking that these were the Shoreline Ventures investors. I didn't answer the door. Through the peephole, I watched them ring the bell, knock, and finally slide a business card under the door before leaving. The card was thick, expensive stock. Marcus Webb, Senior Development Partner, Shoreline Ventures, LLC. On the back, someone had written, Mrs. Holbrook, we should talk. Your son has put us all in a difficult position. Perhaps we can find a mutually beneficial solution. I tore the card in half and dropped it in the trash. By 10 that night, exhaustion was pulling at me, but sleep felt impossible. I sat in Sam's old recliner, looking through photo albums. Daniel as a baby, toothless and grinning. Daniel at 5, proudly holding a hammer at the cabin construction site. Daniel at 30, teaching Emma to swim in Cedar Lake. When had that loving boy become a man who would lock his mother out of her own property? When had money become more important than memory? My phone rang one more time. Not Daniel this time. Emma's number, my hand hovered over the screen. It was past her bedtime. Were they really using her to manipulate me now? I answered, Emma? Grandma. Her voice was small, scared. Are you mad at us? Daddy says you're trying to hurt our family. Mom says you don't love us anymore. My heart shattered. Oh, sweetheart, I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Don't ever doubt that. Then why won't you help Daddy? He says you have something he needs, and you won't share. I closed my eyes. Rage and grief warring in my chest. They'd put her up to this, fed her lines to guilt me into submission. Emma, honey, sometimes adults have disagreements, but it has nothing to do with how much I love you. You remember that, okay? Okay. A pause. Grandma, will you still teach me to make apple pie like you promised? Of course, sweetheart, as soon as I can. After she hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. They'd weaponized my granddaughter against me, used her love like a battering ram. And that, more than anything else, sealed Daniel's fate, because I could forgive many things, but not that, not using Emma's innocent heart as a tool for greed. Tomorrow, I would call Amelia and tell her to proceed with everything. No mercy, no negotiations. They wanted to play dirty. They had no idea what a 68-year-old woman with nothing left to lose could do. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was watering my tomato plants when a silver BMW pulled into my driveway. The man who emerged wasn't one of the investors from earlier in the week. This one was younger, sharper, with the kind of suit that whispered rather than shouted its price tag. Mrs. Holbrook? He approached with a practiced smile and an extended hand. I'm James Fitzgerald, legal counsel for Shoreline Ventures. I wonder if we might have a word? I set down my watering can but didn't take his hand. Mr. Fitzgerald, I have an attorney. Any communication should go through her. Of course, of course. He didn't seem offended by my rebuff. I've already reached out to Miss Brooks, but I thought it might be beneficial to speak directly, person to person. May I? He gestured toward my porch chairs. Against my better judgment, I nodded. We sat in the chairs where Sam and I used to watch sunsets, this stranger in his $1,000 suit looking remarkably at ease. Mrs. Holbrook, I'll be direct. My clients are in a difficult position. They've invested significant time and resources into the Cedar Lake development project based on your son's assurances. The option money was just the beginning. Architects have been hired, environmental studies commissioned, marketing materials developed. That sounds like a problem between you and Daniel, I said evenly. Indeed. He leaned back, studying me. But here's where it gets interesting. We could pursue legal action against your son, criminal fraud charges, civil lawsuits. He'd be ruined, financially, professionally, personally. Is that really what you want? What I want is to be left alone with my property. Understandable. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder, which is why I'm here with an alternative proposal. Shoreline Ventures is prepared to purchase Willow Point directly from you. Fair market value, $1.2 million. Cash, no contingencies. I stared at him. You want to buy my cabin? We want to make you a very wealthy woman. Mrs. Holbrook. $1.2 million. You could buy a dozen cabins, travel the world, secure your granddaughter's education. He slid the folder across the small table between us. The offer is here in writing. Take your time, consult with Miss Brooks, but consider this. You could have financial security and put this ugly family dispute behind you. I didn't touch the folder. Mr. Fitzgerald, do you have children? He blinked at the non sequitur. 2 daughters, twins. They're 6. Then maybe you'll understand this. I stood, looking down at him. My husband built that cabin with his bare hands, every board, every nail, every stone in the fireplace. My son took his first steps on that porch. My granddaughter caught her first fish off that dock. You're not offering me money. You're asking me to sell my soul. The answer is no. He stood as well, his smile never wavering. I respect your position, but let me paint another picture. If you don't sell to us, we'll recover our losses from your son. He'll be bankrupt within 6 months. Your granddaughter will grow up knowing her grandmother chose a cabin over her father's future. Is that legacy worth preserving? The legacy I'm preserving is integrity. I picked up the folder and handed it back to him. Something my son forgot, but maybe Emma will remember. Good day, Mr. Fitzgerald. He accepted the folder with a small nod. The offer stands, Mrs. Holbrook. When Daniel's world comes crashing down, and it will remember that you had the power to prevent it. After he left, I called Amelia immediately. She listened to my account with interest. 1.2 million, she mused. They're serious about this development. That also tells me they're vulnerable. They need your property specifically, which means they've already made promises to their own investors. I don't care about their investors. No, but leverage is leverage. I could hear her smile through the phone. You did well refusing him. Let them sweat a little longer. That evening, Pat came over with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. We were halfway through both when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel standing on my porch, alone. No Lauren, no lawyers. Just my son looking haggard and years older than his 41 years. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Daniel. Mom. His voice was hoarse. Can we talk, please? Pat appeared behind me. You want me to call Robert? No. I studied my son's face. The boy I'd raised was in there somewhere, behind the exhaustion and desperation. 5 minutes. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. Daniel sank into Sam's chair, a liberty that made me bristle, but I let it pass. They want to sue me, he said without preamble. Criminal charges. Fraud. I could go to jail. Mom, do you understand that? Jail? I understand you lied about owning my property. I didn't. I thought... He rubbed his face. I thought you'd come around. You always do. And this tech startup. Mom, it was going to change everything. Revolutionary app development. I just needed capital. And the cabin was sitting there. Unused. Unused? My voice could have frozen July. I was there 6 weeks ago. You know what I mean. It's not generating income, it's just sentiment. Just sentiment. I let the words hang between us. Like your father's memory? Like 40 years of family history? Dad's gone. The words exploded out of him. He's been gone for 3 years, and you're still living like he's about to walk through the door. That cabin is a shrine to a dead man while your living son is drowning. The slap of his words stung, but I held steady. You're drowning in a pool you filled yourself. Daniel. With lies, with greed, with disrespect for everything your father and I built. So you'll let me burn? Your own son? He leaned forward, and for a moment I saw the child he'd been, scared and seeking comfort. Mom, please, I'm begging you. Sell the cabin, take their offer. Save me. Save yourself. I stood, my decision final. Take responsibility, tell the truth, make amends, but Willow Point isn't for sale. Not to them, not to you, not to anyone. He stood too, the mask of desperation cracking to show ugly anger beneath. You're a selfish old woman. Dad would be ashamed of you. I smiled then, sad but certain. Your father would have cut that chain you put on our property road himself. He would have stood on our dock and told those developers exactly where they could shove their money. He would have been heartbroken to see what you've become, but he would have protected what we built, just like I'm doing. Daniel stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. I watched his taillights disappear into the darkness, knowing I might never see my son again. The knowledge sat like lead in my chest, but underneath it was something stronger. Sam would have been proud of me today, and in the end, that mattered more than anything else. When I went back inside, Pat had poured me a fresh glass of wine. You okay? No, I admitted, sinking onto the couch. But I will be. That's my girl. She raised her glass. To Sam, to Willow Point, and to women who don't back down. We clinked glasses, and I felt something shift inside me. The battle wasn't over. Daniel and his investors would try again. But they'd shown their cards, and I'd shown my spine. Tomorrow, I would drive up to Willow Point with bolt cutters. My husband had built that cabin, and no chain would keep me from it. Let them come at me with lawsuits and threats and emotional manipulation. I was Margaret Holbrook, and I was done being pushed around. Monday morning arrived with unexpected clarity. I woke at 5:30, made coffee, and called Amelia's emergency line. She answered on the second ring, alert despite the early hour. Maggie, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I want you to arrange a meeting with Shoreline Ventures. Today, if possible. A pause. Are you considering their offer? No, but I have something to tell them, and I need you there. By 2 that afternoon, we were in Shoreline's conference room, all glass and chrome and city views. Marcus Webb sat across from us with 2 other executives and James Fitzgerald. Their confidence had dimmed since our last meeting. Thank you for coming. Mrs. Holbrook, Webb began. Have you reconsidered our offer? No. I pulled out a folder Amelia had prepared. I'm here to inform you that my attorney has uncovered the full extent of my son's fraudulent activities. We have documentation of forged signatures, false representation, and conspiracy to commit property theft. The men exchanged glances. Fitzgerald leaned forward. That's between you and your son. Not anymore. Amelia took over, her voice sharp as winter ice. You see, gentlemen, you didn't just accept Daniel's word, you conducted due diligence. Your own investigation should have revealed the property's true ownership. The fact that you proceeded anyway suggests either gross negligence or willful participation in fraud. Webb's face flushed. That's a serious accusation. Yes, it is. I met his eyes steadily, which is why I'm giving you one opportunity. Withdraw from this project completely. Cancel any claims against my son. Write off your losses and walk away. And if we don't? Amelia smiled. Then we pursue criminal charges against both Daniel and Shoreline Ventures for conspiracy to commit fraud. The state attorney general has been very interested in development companies that prey on elderly property owners through family members. You'd make an excellent test case. The room went silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming, traffic far below. Finally, Webb spoke. You'd destroy your own son to protect a cabin? My son destroyed himself. I stood, gathering my strength. But I'm offering him a chance to rebuild, without your lawsuits, without bankruptcy. He can start over. Learn from this. Maybe become the man his father hoped he'd be. And the cabin? Remains in my family, where it belongs. 3 hours later, the papers were signed. Shoreline Ventures agreed to absorb their losses and abandon the Cedar Lake project. Daniel would face no civil lawsuits from them, though criminal charges were still possible if the DA chose to pursue them. I called Daniel from my car. He answered on the first ring. Mom? It's done. Shoreline won't be coming after you. You're free to start over. Silence, then barely audible. Why? Because you're still my son. Because Emma needs a father who isn't in prison. Because maybe, someday, you'll understand that some things matter more than money. Mom, His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. And I did. But sorry isn't enough anymore. Daniel, you need help. Real help. Therapy. Maybe Lauren, too. Figure out how you became people who would use a 12-year-old to manipulate her grandmother. We never meant... Yes, you did. Own it. Fix it. And Daniel, if you ever try to touch Willow Point again, I won't be so merciful. I hung up before he could respond. 2 weeks later, I stood on the dock at Willow Point watching the sun set over Cedar Lake. The chain was gone. Robert had cut it off himself and installed a new lock, giving me the only keys. The cabin was clean, repairs made, Sam's photo back in its place of honor on the mantel. Emma was with me. Daniel had allowed a visit, supervised, tentative, but a start. She sat beside me, feet dangling over the water, working on the friendship bracelet I was teaching her to make. Grandma, Dad says he made some bad choices. He did, sweetheart. But you still love him? I pulled her close. Love doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. Sometimes, loving someone means standing firm until they remember how to be their best self. She considered this with 12-year-old seriousness. Is that why you wouldn't give him the cabin? Partly, but mostly because this place is special. Your grandpa built it, and someday, when you're older, I'll tell you the whole story. For now. Just know that some things are worth fighting for. Like family? Especially family, even when they forget what that means. A loon called across the water, its haunting sound echoing off the shores. Emma snuggled closer, and I breathed in the pine-scented air that Sam had loved so much. They'd tried to erase me, to rewrite our family's story without me in it. But I'd held the pen all along. The cabin stood strong, my granddaughter sat beside me, and somewhere in town, my son was hopefully learning that inheritance isn't about what you're owed, but what you've earned. I'd won more than a legal battle. I'd preserved a legacy. And as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, I knew Sam would have been proud. They wanted to delete me from the narrative. Instead, I wrote myself an ending worth keeping. And this time, I made sure I kept the only copy. Anne, thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious to know where in the world you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced a similar family situation? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences.